Hi there, Waterpolo fans, and welcome to this week's episode of the Total Waterpolo Podcast. I hope you're doing all right. Today we are joined on the show by another goalkeeper, another crazy goalkeeper. Just kidding. But our guest is certainly one of the best in the world, and his career pathway is certainly fascinating. I'm delighted to be joined today by Joao Pedro. Now, just before we start, a quick reminder that we now have a Patreon account that allows you to support us financially. So if you appreciate our work and you are in a position to support us, head over to the Patreon page. The link is in the show notes, and contribute in any way you can. All of our content will remain free, but any contributions will help us in our work to promote the sport, and we'll appreciate it massively. Joao, you've sat there patiently. Welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
Fantastic. Thank you very much for the invite. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here today. Let's have a nice chat.
Let's. And I just telling you, just before you came on the podcast, I was just scrolling through Instagram and I've just seen the announcement about Partizan. We will talk about that slightly later. We will get round to it. So if you're listening, don't worry, we're not going to avoid it. We do know the news. We're just going to talk about some other things first. So Joao, if it's possible, in about a minute or two, can you explain your journey, your water polo journey from birth to how you're sitting here today on this podcast?
Well, of course, it's kind of an unusual journey, especially having in mind that I came from Brazil. I started about 2010, 2011 when I was 10 years old to play water polo. I was a swimmer for that. I joined my Brazilian club Paineiras Waterpolo team to have fun, to see where it could take me, and I immediately fell in love by the sport. So in early ages, I joined the youth national team of Brazil, under 15, 17, 18, play a few world championships. And then I moved to Spain by myself when I was almost 16-year-old to Barcelona, where I could play with the under 16, under 18 categories and play for a few of the senior teams there in Spain. Perhaps we're going to talk about it later, who knows. But shortly was that, and then later on I was invited by Barcelona to join the first team, where I played one season, and after that I came to Novi Beograd, which was a kind of a huge surprise for me, but thankfully by the help of Slobodan Soro, Alexic and Perone, it became truth. And now, as you said previously, now I'm joining Partizan for the next season, so it will be another nice adventure.
Yeah, nice. 15 minutes condensed into 60 seconds. It's good. The most interesting thing, of course, is that you said when you were 15 or 16, you moved to Spain, obviously to play for Barcelona, and obviously I think later Sant Andrew. But it's an interesting pathway because it's also similar to another very, very famous Brazilian-born player, Felipe Perone. We'll talk about that in a second. But how did this happen? How did you move? How did you make that decision? And how much did you have to sacrifice? I mean, it's a huge undertaking, really.
I mean, sacrifices are a very common thing for athletes, especially when you're young. But yeah, I was in a water polo camp with my team in 2014 to Spain, and I had a few friends who were already there, Rafa Vergara and Mateus Telet. They were there already playing a living, and I said, okay, I want that for myself as well. I think that's the way to get to where I want in sport, to get a professional player. And then I reached out to Barcelona, asked them what would they think about me coming to join the team, if they think I could have a chance. So they saw me in this camp, they liked what they saw, and they called me to come for 6 months to play the last half of the season. It was fantastic. We won everything. The team was great. And of course, I had to go to school. I had to do everything that a normal kid would do just by myself without my parents around. So that was, I think, one of the biggest sacrifices at the moment, to leave everything behind, my friends, family, all the culture I've lived by until then, to go to a new country, completely in another continent to play. But that was a dream I had, and I followed that. So basically, I reached out to Barcelona, and they got me with a lot of compassion, and they made me part of the family. So that was very nice.
It's quite interesting, really, because you reached out to them, and I guess there is a lesson there for kids that want to do this sort of thing. You be brave and go up and introduce yourself if you're at these tournaments, and it worked out brilliantly for you. Obviously, I did mention Filippo Peroni. Obviously, he's also Brazilian. He made the same journey. Were you speaking a lot with him during that time? Was he advising you at all about things like this?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I didn't get to meet with him until I was part of the team, since he was playing at Jug at the time when I arrived to Spain. But definitely, from the first moment, he was helping me a lot in the team, to fit into the team, fit into the logistics of the team, the dynamics. After that, to go to Novi Beograd and how to establish myself in Serbia, what to expect from all of this. He helped me with my contract obligations, everything I needed to know. He was there all the time, so he's a fantastic person in this aspect. Of course, he knows what it takes to go out of Brazil, to go to Spain and other countries. It's a huge deal. So he was prepared there all the time to help me with that. So that was a huge plus for me.
I bet. And Spain, it's a great place really to live and to play water polo. Maybe can you give us and our listeners some highlights of your time living in Barcelona and playing, and obviously the success you enjoyed?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, of course. Barcelona, especially when you're young. I mean, I guess for all the ages, but especially when you're young, to go there, it's fantastic. The city is very much alive. You have a lot of stuff to do. The beach is very close. You can make a lot of young friends. The Waterpolo community is very small, but at the same time, it's very wild. It's very wide all over Spain. So I lived pretty much my teenage years there. So all this experience in school, studying there, moving around, growing up, developing my water polo. I didn't know a lot about water polo until I moved there. So I learned pretty much everything there from first contact with the team. Pinedo was every day there with me. I was training with him for a amount. He was changing completely my perspective of the sport. So to play for my first Spanish championships with Barceloneta, where Barceloneta cap, was definitely something very special for me. In very, very pretty pools, these big Cornell pools that were fantastic with a huge view, a lot of history. So everything in the first moment was a huge shock for me to see what is real water polo from another perspective. These were definitely some highlights. Of course, friends that I have until nowadays, that we share a lot of experience, that I can play against them here in Europe competitions. That was totally something else for me.
I mean, I'm just hearing that you had Pinedo and Peroni both as your like mentors. It's like there's no two people better really. And you obviously enjoyed some success in Barceloneta, but obviously you did decide to move on. And obviously, last few seasons you were playing in Belgrade with Novi Beograd. Firstly, how did that transfer come about, and what made you want to swap Barca for Belgrade?
Well, it wasn't planned at all, since I had still 1 year contract with Barceloneta when that happened. But they were hiring this Unai Aguirre, who at the time was becoming a sensation, what he is still today. He was going to be part of the national team already for the Olympic Games. So it was an agreement I had with the club that Pinedo was going to steal 1 more season. So it wasn't very good for me to be 3 goalkeepers there, especially with Unai coming. They would give him the preference, his Spanish team, the biggest Spanish team. So they told me that if I were willing to leave, I could definitely without any kind of problems. They were very kind for that, to treat me with a lot of respect in this aspect. And then immediately I called Perone, told him my situation, and of course he's very well connected and he knows a lot of people around the water polo world. So he spoke with a few people. Alexic was with me there at the time in the team, so he also moved a few sticks for me. And then in the end, Soro was in the Novi Beograd, and we were a few years together in the national team. So they all put a good word for me for Novi Beograd, who was looking for a second goalkeeper. They had still a foreigner spot to be filled. So it was kind of a last minute signing for them. It was a huge coincidence also that we were going to play my first Final 8 tournament in Belgrade, in Novi Beograd's pool during the COVID times. That was something different. So everything pretty much came out together. And then I've done that once, to move from a country to another to experience some new water polo. So it wasn't much difference, just different city, different team. So I was very much okay with that. The first moment.
Did you find it scary going to Serbia? The different kind of attitude towards water polo. You know, Barcelona's great.
Kind of, yeah. I didn't feel any kind of pressure, meaning I knew I was going to be the second goalkeeper in the first year, but of course I was going to fight for my position. But I knew it was a big deal. Like Serbians, they look like to water polo like with a lot of competitiveness. They want to be the first. They want to be the best. I didn't know what to expect. How they train, how they behave in the pool, how they behave outside the pool. Because Spanish people are very much like Brazilians. They like being together, talking, going out. And I didn't know what to expect about the Serbians, so that was my mainly concern about the city as well. I have never been to Belgrade before. I didn't know how things would function here, but everything went smooth, perfect. It was completely the opposite side what I was expecting. Everybody is fantastic. They like to be around. They like to go for coffees. So that was a huge plus. So all good, positive things came with all of that. The team was very nice. A lot of huge names. That was news for me. Barcelona, even though they were a fantastic team, they were 80%, 90% of the national team. You go to a place where they just became Olympic champions for the second time. Dusan Mandic, Duško Petlović, Gojko Petlović, all these guys, Vlahopoulos. This was something huge. Vujasinović is the coach. So I feel kind of pressure to perform good enough for what I was going to do there. So also to give a step forward in my career. So in this aspect, yes, I felt a little bit of pressure, a little bit scared, but everything went out the best way possible.
Yeah. And how would you compare playing in the Spanish and the Serbian leagues? I mean, you're obviously a goalkeeper, so you're seeing it from that point of view. Did you feel you had to kind of change the way that you played in goal when you went?
Yeah.
In what ways?
100%. First of all, when you compare the teams, the lower division teams, let's say the middle down of the table, even though they're not the best, all the players know how to play water polo. They know how to pass, how to shoot. They understand the game. So this is a huge difference for me. In Spain, if you go lower in the table, you don't find that much of a quality. So you here in Serbia, you find a lot of young players who are very talented, that they have a lot of ambition, and they are huge prospects of the water polo. So this is the first difference. Definitely, you have more competition, meaning the club names and the politics involved. So there's much more involved rather than just the club and water polo. So it's more things in stake. But tactics-wise, I really found the different. The game is much less dynamic in defense than in Spain. The players are more static. They trust much more in the block, but the goalkeeper has more responsibility. They expect much more from the goalkeeper to be the guy who will give you 55-6% of saves every game to win a game. And if something goes wrong, the goalkeeper is the first one to blame. And that's the first thing Gojko Petlović told me. Be careful, be ready. When things go south, the first guy they blame is the goalkeeper. So that's it was a huge deal for me in the beginning. But of course, with Soro there all the time, I was in contact with Pinedo very often. They were telling me, just relax, don't take these things personally, just do your best, just do your job. But for some elementary things, it's pretty much the same. The blocks are staying in the short, like that, but they expect you to be much more stable. You have to perform much more stable, consistent all the time.
Mm-hmm. Just before we move on and talk about your new club, Partizan, just a word on Novi Beograd. Can you maybe explain that club to maybe our listeners? Obviously had some amazing players in their very short kind of time that they've been around. But would you say it's a difficult place for you as a player and your teammates to play in, with the pressures from the external factors, the politics and everything like that? What would you say about that?
I mean, it's a club that came from nowhere. It didn't even exist a few years ago, 6-7 years ago. It didn't even exist, and it suddenly became something. And as many people would know, Šapić appeared as a politician, and he injected a lot of money in the club. he had a project to become the new Proreko Novi Beograd. Huge players, huge results, win the Champions League. It was a team built to win the Champions League. Unfortunately, we didn't manage that, but we all know how hard it can be. It's not easy task. But being there with many players very often comes to the point that the ego of the players, it starts to collide in the water. When you have a player who have won so many medals, so many condecorations, so many prizes, it's hard to let it go sometimes when you think you're right and the other one's wrong, when you think you should take the responsibility in the water and the other one as well. This is the hardest part, you know. The coach has to control a lot of players, a lot of situations at the same time, which sometimes might not be easy. So you mix all of that together, players with huge names, huge egos, who really want a lot of things and they want to take this leadership role. At the same time, with the politics, the pressure you have from being a club with so much money, you need to perform, you need to give results. It sometimes can lead to very difficult times inside the club, between the players, you know, especially, of which we tried all the time to keep the positive mind, keep the positive energy in the locker room, to try to gather ourselves together, go around the situation most of the times possible. But it's overall very hard. Mm-hmm. And you have often situations that you get other clubs rooting against you just because you came out of nowhere and you have a lot of money and they don't have that much money and they're much more classic teams. And you can find yourself in a situation when others are they're rooting against you. And that also, it's a minus. Mm-hmm. It takes a lot of energy.
Mm-hmm. Just one thing you said there. You said obviously with like a lot of the egos. We've got 4 or 5 Olympic gold medalists and foreigners who've been brought in, and maybe, you know, a lot of investment. You see clubs like Proreko and also, you know, you could say Ferencvaros maybe, or Olympiacos, that some of them get it right and some of them don't. What do you think maybe the one thing that Novi Beograd could do to maybe improve that? I mean, do you think, for example, they will ever win that Champions League that they're looking for?
I think they need more patience. I think that's the key for everything. When you look for clubs like Proreko, even Partizan, like previous years, clubs that Mladost, who is also a club who was super traditional, they didn't won the Champions League from day to night. You need time, you need structure, you need to get a team together, you have to let them know that they have to do the best, they have to give results. But if something goes wrong, it's okay, it's part of the process. I think they really tried to do the best they could in this aspect, but they also knew that the time is money, and you can't lose that much time. So mm-hmm. There's these two sides of the picture. You know, you can't only expect something to happen in the next years when you're already putting so much money. So it's a kind of complicated situation mm-hmm. when you find yourself there with so much money in your hands, needing a result ASAP. But you also need to have patience for that to happen. You need the team to come together, the players to understand each other, the coach to understand how the players are playing. Even though many of them played in the national team, they were playing the whole year separated for many years. So it takes time for you to know how your goalkeeper likes to play, how the center is playing, how the defender likes to do, what the coach expects from you. Then you start to adjust those things, and step by step you get the results. I think this is something that not missed, but could be taken more in account. More mm-hmm. patience and let the process do the job.
Mm-hmm. Well said. Okay, but obviously you're no longer playing for Novi Beograd, and this morning it was kind of announced publicly. I mean, there were a few rumours that you'd be staying in Belgrade. You've signed for Partizan, and I mean, you've already said it yourself. It's one of the greatest Waterpolo clubs in the world. So much history, so much quality. I mean, they produce the best players in the world. It's as simple as that. So it must be really special for you to be signed by them. And how much are you looking forward to joining and playing for Partizan?
Very much. As you said, it's extremely traditional club. I think it's the club in Europe with the most trophies won Champions League wise. I think it's 11 or something like that. And of course, there's a lot of history. And I think Partizan's going through now a process of reestablishment. They're renewing the categories. They are going from down again up. So for me to try to help them to go back again is very important for me to put my name in this story, even though it's for a short period, who knows. For me, it would be very special. I had a dream when I was younger to go to Serbia to play for Partizan in my last years of my career, but it came earlier than I expected. And I think that's going to be super special. It's going to be nice to play a different European competition. Now we will play LAN. That's something I never played. That's something for sure is going to be very, very tough. It's a very, very interesting competition. Also, a lot of good clubs are playing. We're going to try to do some very good result in the league. That's going to be for sure a new challenge for me. So all good things can come from this signing. To develop myself as an athlete, to develop myself as a goalkeeper. I can learn a lot. There are a lot of very good, capable coaches, a lot of young talents. They are training super well. They're very professional, very serious. So that's for me something very important.
It's exciting. It sounds like there's a good project going on in Partizan, and we'd love to see them back where they belong, really. And maybe you can play a part in getting them back to.
I hope so.
Yeah, it'd be great. And obviously, best of luck for that. I kind of want to talk about something Brazilian water polo. You're Brazilian, and the listeners and I are kind of wondering, like, what's going on in Brazil at the moment in terms of its water polo. Can you try and kind of set the scene about what's going on there?
It's pretty much complex, but I will try to sum up for you. So let's take it from the Olympic Games in Rio. Brazil started a huge project to bring up water polo. Like many countries, when they know they're going to host the Olympic Games, they put money, they put everything that it takes, structure to improve the sport. That's the best thing that can happen for our country, is to have Olympic Games. And sadly for Brazil was the quite opposite. So Brazil managed for the 3 years before the Olympic Games to build a very strong team that were giving good results. They brought some players back. They put Freiner called Ratko Rudic, sort of played Josip Vrilic. So they managed for that time to build a very strong national team that was very competitive. Something like France is nowadays. So that was very interesting. USA, this very much similar what Brazil was at the time, fighting against the biggest teams. But after that, sadly, everything went away and Brazil went very down immediately. The very next year, Brazil went very down. Lost all the money. The players went away. Coach went away. We lost a lot of Brazilian players who said they didn't want to continue playing anymore. Nobody else was playing in Europe. So after that, and a few problems into the federation with corruption, stealing money, and a few directives going to jail, this caused a few problems that we're still dealing with nowadays in the law that makes federation not able to get some money. So we are depending now in another federation that we built called Brazilian Waterpolo Federation, separated from the federation. That is managed by the clubs, and that can cause a lot of confusion because everyone has a say in everything and everybody is looking for their personal projects and personal gains. So it's not taking it anywhere. So we start taking players from the clubs because of politics. They're starting putting coaches from the clubs for politics. You don't get money. You're expecting the Olympic Committee to give you money when they have many other sports also to help. You can't get sponsors because of the legal problems. You can't get money coming from anywhere because of the legal problems. So year by year, Brazilian water polo is going down. The league is losing power. Teams, clubs are closing. They are losing the water polo team. So every year have fewer clubs, fewer players interested in playing. And with that comes a lot of bad organization, bad use of the money they have. So everything together becomes a catastrophe. So you can see Brazil qualified for the World Championships. They didn't go. They're expecting to qualify for Los Angeles, and they didn't even start the preparation. So you need a lot of things to be done to start from zero, and they're not being done the right way, unfortunately. So to sum up, is more or less like this. There are many other things involved, many people involved, so it's kind of complicated to explain it shortly.
I mean that sounds like an absolute mess, and I don't even know.
Totally,
I don't even know how you even go about sorting that out. Really, you know, they obviously were invited to play at the World Championships, and they obviously they withdrew from that. But as I understand it, there will be a Pan American Games in Chile. I think it's Santiago in
Yes.
October. Do you know if they plan to play in that competition?
They're planning to play because this Olympic committee competition. So they have the help of the Brazilian Olympic Committee. They're already preparing. They'll be coming to Serbia in September to make some preparation, but they need to finish first to qualify to Olympic Games. So they have to go through USA and Canada, which nowadays are much stronger. They're in another category than Brazil. So it makes things very hard. But yeah, they're for sure going to play for that. Yeah.
And obviously, you personally, you know, it's been a while since you've played for Brazil. Obviously, you have a Serbian passport. Can we maybe infer that your time with Brazil is now over?
For now, yes. For now, unfortunately, I don't feel interested in participating in this project they are building. I don't see a logic. I don't see point. I don't see a big perspective. So for me, that's very important. I would love with all my heart to defend the colors of my country. But as I told you, if there was a structure, it was a project, it was an idea, things were doing properly, which is not the case. And that makes me very sad. So I have to look for what's the best option for me. And if it's to wait a little bit longer and be lucky enough for Serbian national team to call me, so be it. I know it's a very ambitious idea, very hard thing to expect, but you never know. So I just focusing to be the best I can in the club, help the club, and just wait for the others to take the decisions.
I mean, based on what you've said about the state of water polo, there, I don't think anyone can blame you for doing that, really. Yeah. But it just does go to show there are obviously players coming from South America, like yourself, Peroni, like Echenique, obviously came from Argentina. You know, there are players that are world-class players who want to play for their native countries, but if they, you know, there has to be something for them there, and if there's not going to be anything, you know, it could show what a national team with you in and Peroni, and you know, it could show what Brazil could be, and others. I know there's lots of other really quality players in South America. As well.
So many talented players. It's unbelievable. When you go there, you see the kids playing, even some senior players. They're so talented. You have a lot of talent. You have players who you look at them and say, this kid could be something in water polo, 100%. But then many other factors enters that makes this not happen. You can count endless, but for sure you have many talented players that could easily be in Europe, you know. Argentinians, they have many players nowadays in Europe in lower teams, but they have, you know. But Brazilians are not willing to go that further now for whatever reason, which is a shame because they are really good players. They could really bring something to the scenario.
Lots of problems. Let's hope they can be sorted out. We're going to take a break now, and then we're going to come back in part 2. We've got an awful lot of questions, goalkeeper questions in particular, and we'll have a short break and ask you those questions in a second. Okay, welcome back to this episode of the Total Water Polo Podcast. We're with Joao Pedro. Joao, this is the part of the podcast when we ask you questions that people have sent in via social media, Instagram, email, Facebook, all sorts of things like this. The first question we ask all of our guests, Joao, is for them to give their total 7. So 7 players, a dream team of players. It can be anyone, it can be any combination, however you like. If you could pick 7 players in a lineup, I actually need to get a bit of paper and pen to write it down. But yeah, let's go. Let's hear your total 7.
Could be retired players as well.
It can be anyone. It can be retired. They can be, you played with,
Currently,
played against, never played with or against.
So that's a tough one. I think I would start in the goal. I would put Denis Šefik. For me, he was the best of all time, 100%. In the center position, I would go with Duško Pjatulić. For me, he's a complete beast nowadays and back in the days. As defender, I would go with Vujasinović, total boss. In the right side, I would put, let me think a little bit. I could put Benedek in position 1. Position 2, I would put my huge friend Vlahopoulos.
Mm-hmm.
In the left side, I would go with Perone to completely rule the game, and the Kašaš. So that would be my top 7.
Nice.
A little bit of new generation, old generation, but for me, those guys. Yeah. I could put many other guys, but for me, these guys were rulers of their time. So,
sorry, who did you put as goalkeeper?
Denis Šefik.
And do you think he was the best goalkeeper of all time?
Of what he did, I never saw anybody be even close to do in the goal. He was total massive. He was a beast. I think he was. I would be in doubt between him and Josip Pavić, but I think I would go with him. He is something else.
Was he your kind of hero growing up? Did you have like a hero growing up in Waterpolo?
Yeah, of course. I have many. I have Pavić, Tempesti, Naj Victor. These guys, Soro was, before I even know him, he was a reference for me. These guys. And then furthermore, Pinedo became one. So during my life, all of these guys became heroes at one point. But
which of those goalkeepers would you say that you're most like stylistically?
Stylistically, it's hard to tell. I like to think my style mixed a little bit between what Šapanović used to play and mixed to it Pavić a little bit, but very different still. But the mix between these guys, maybe Lazović a little bit. I got a little bit of him, which is funny because I never had any kind of contact with these guys. I learned mostly from Soro and Pinedo, which taught me the basics and the essentials of goalkeeping. But by technique, I think the Pavić and Šapanović most similar to them. Yeah. I would say.
Joao Pedro, the Balkan goalkeeper.
Yeah,
the Balkan.
Balkan name also.
That's it. Okay, we'll move on then. And a question here from Nika Shushiashvili, obviously your former teammate, someone who I know you spent a lot of time with, unfortunately, but neither of you are playing for Novi Beograd anymore, but I know you two are really good friends. He asked, what's the biggest thing you have taken from your time with Novi Beograd?
Well, nice question, Nika. That's a tough one. Best thing, I would say for sure, is to learn how to be patient. How to try to understand the situations and respect that everything has a way to happen, to overcome tough times, and that everybody will always have something to say. That's things that I very much learned from this time in Novi Beograd. 100%. Mm-hmm.
Well, it's funny you say that. I just need to scroll down because you just said how to deal with tough times, right?
Yeah.
We've got kind of two questions from Paolo and Erlen, both on Instagram. I hope that's not Erlen Harlin. I don't know anyone else with that name. Anyway, and they ask, how do you deal with negative thoughts that you might let your team down? And Erlen kind of asks, what's the best tips to stay in the game mentally after a bad mistake? It's a bit of a cliche, really, but goalkeeper is such a psychological role, really, isn't it? So how do you deal with negative thoughts, and how do you?
First of all, that's the very classic thing. Everybody makes mistakes, so it's not always on you. Second of all, is Soro always told me, part of the job of the goalkeeper is not just saving balls, but also going inside the net to pass the ball to the middle when you receive a goal. So it's part of the job. You can never expect to take 0 goals. You're going to make mistakes. You have to understand there is another guy on the other side who is training as much as you to score a goal on you. So, of course, negative thoughts come because you want to be the best. You don't want to fail your teammates, but you're going to make mistakes. So, as fast as you accept that you're going to make them, fast as you can just forget about them. During the game, take a goal, forget, next shot. Always like that. Never think too much what happened. And also very important during the trainings to never give a reaction after taking a goal. Not, mad, hit the post, this is the bad thing, because you forget what you did. So when you take a goal in the training, take this half second, 1 second before the next shot just to think what happened. What did you do? Where were your arm, your leg? Where were your position? So those things naturally push the negative thoughts because you're already focusing the next step without overthinking stuff too much. So that's the main thing I do.
Mm-hmm. And how do you keep focused when the ball's up at the other end? How do you make sure that you're still in the game mentally?
Yeah. Well, obviously, when the team is attacking, you have these 30 seconds or more, like kind of relaxing, let's say, or resting a little bit. It's very much important to try to read the situations. What are we doing? What's up to be next? Because you have to check the score, how much time is in the clock, what the possibilities the other team has, what defense they're playing, because this can get a counterattack if you're going to have a man up or no. All those things are very important. So you have to think about the game all the time, and this, by consequence, will let you alert and focus on the game. So don't be an spectator when you're in the water, but to read the game because you're playing still. Mm-hmm. So when you're focusing on those things, 100% you keep your mind alert.
It's good. It's good advice. We've got a question here. I assume it's from a friend or teammate, a guy called Mateus, who asks, where does your nickname, and I think it said exclusion, is it exclusion, come from? Is that a nickname you have?
Oh, I never heard this nickname before. That's hard.
Exclusion?
Oh, I don't know. I never heard.
I assume this guy was your teammate or something. I don't know.
That's tough.
Do you have a nickname?
I have a few ones, but no, I never heard about this one.
Maybe I'm saying it wrong. To be honest, British people can't pronounce anything, but it's exclusion. But what are your nicknames then, if not this?
Here they call me. Since I came to Europe, I lost my name. Nobody can pronounce my name, so it became Joa. Here sometimes call me Jex, but they never can. So doesn't have like a motive. Just like they can't pronounce my name, so they just go for it. Exclusion. This one never heard before.
I really feel bad for the person that's asked this question, because if I've completely ruined the way you pronounce it. But anyway, we'll move on. This is a really interesting goalkeeper question. What is the most difficult shot for a goalkeeper to save in a game?
Obviously, it depends on you, on what are your flaws. For me personally, I would say faraway shots. I have some kind of problem with them. I don't know why. Or the skip shots that don't skip. Those shots that they don't skip. They go very low and they go close to the water. I have some kind of problems with those. But yeah, it depends on you. But I think the hardest shots for a goalkeeper is always them that surprises you. It dislocates you, moves you around, because if you're expecting something, it's easier to save. When they do something different, one less fake, one change of movement, they move you around, for sure is completely going to be harder. If they break your rhythm with the fake, those are the hardest shots, 100%.
Mm-hmm. And which kind of teams or countries, which players have the best fake?
Hungarians.
You think?
Hungarians.
Yeah.
Hungarians for me are always tricky to play against them. They have this variety of shots. They're so creative. They can shoot anytime, anywhere, 10 different kind of shots each one. So these guys, they have a different shot, 100%. But also the Greeks, they have a different aspect. They're very technical shooters, so they're moving the ball very well until the last second. So when you think they're going to shoot, can be always a last pass, and then you're always out of the ball. So these are very tough too.
And I guess I you said that maybe the longer shots and the shots that bounce but don't really bounce. Do you tell your teammates wherever you're training? Do you ever say, right, I just want you to shoot like this, maybe an hour after the session or half an hour after the session, and just focus on a particular shot?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes, especially if you're preparing for some specific games, and I know there are some players on the other side that I have more problems with those guys. I ask for some teammates to go in the position they play and shoot a few times like they would, just to get into this feeling. But this is an aspect you mostly work in the trainings for the technique, goalkeeper technique. So you have to improve your technique, because those are shots that are very elementary. They're not surprise shots. They're not something special. They're just elementary stuff goalkeeper has to know. So you work more those on the techniques aspect.
Yeah. Okay, we've got kind of joint question here from Mitchell and Josip, and they say, what goes through your mind during a penalty shootout? And do you have any advice for penalty saving techniques? So do you approach a penalty shootout differently from how you would approach a normal game? Does anything change inside you, or do you just approach it the same?
Yeah. During a penalty shootout, I first of all try to calm myself down a little bit, because you came to a point that is 50-50, let's say. You don't have much control of the situation. You lose a little bit of the control. There is not like a situation is going to be a man up. You have to save it. You can't make a mistake. It's a penalty shootout, you have to enjoy it. It's very fun to play. So 100%. If it's a penalty during the game, it's differently, because the result can be 1 down, 1 up, tie game. So you have to, another factors. But penalty shootout, you just have to enjoy it. It's a game, you're playing against the other. But I try also to check who is going to be shooting. Try to remember in my book, I have a book where I write the shooters, where they normally shoot. If they had shoot already in the game, where did they shoot? The body positioning, try to play a little bit to mental games, get out of the goal a little bit, come back, change my directions a little bit. So it's all about the game, So when you go to a penalty shootout, you have to play. You have to enjoy, be relaxed. That's the most important thing. Just enjoy.
This is how we know goalkeepers are crazy, because you just said, penalty shootout, it's fun. It's when, most shooters are like, oh God, I don't want to miss. But you said there something really interesting. You've got a book. I mean, that's normal, I think. Lots of, in other sports, you see them on the water.
Right here. I have it right here.
Oh, he's going to show it to us.
Yeah, I have a book here with, look, for the players, where they shoot, with the names, position. I don't know if you can see it very well, but I have it with me.
That is awesome.
I take always 2-3 days before the game, watch a few videos, write down, and then I read it a little bit before the game to remember. Yeah. It's good for mentalization, to visualize it a little bit.
Yeah. That's cool. I know this is a bit of a difficult question to ask, but if a player shoots one way in their first penalty that they take in a game or something, the next penalty, what are you thinking? Are you thinking they're going to go the same side? Are you thinking, they're going to change it? It's a classic debate.
Sometimes you think about it, but I think the pressure is on the player. He's the one who has the obligation to score. If you save a penalty. It's a penalty, He's very close. He has nobody in front of him. So basically just follow your instinct. I try to push the thoughts, don't think too much. If you think too much, you're not going to do neither one thing, neither the other. So I just go the first side, or the first way I think in my mind where I should go. That's my instinct, because I don't want to overthink it. Yeah,
I love the book. Yeah. Maybe we can get some photocopied pages or something. We can look inside. Yeah.
That's something Franovićan was doing a lot. I heard. Very Croatian goalkeeper from the old times. He was also a fantastic goalkeeper. He was always looking a lot about statistics. But nowadays, many goalkeepers are doing it. I know for a fact that Unai Aguirre also does that in a different way. He has a PowerPoint or in the computer or something like that. So I think it's a very important thing. Football goalkeepers doing this all the time, handball goalkeepers. So I think it's a normal thing to do.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. Okay, next question. Interesting question. It's a question I think lots of people want to know the answer to. Certainly I do. So Jan Perez asks, would you ever play for Serbia?
Of course. I think if I ever get a chance to play for Serbia, I would immediately play. I think that's an honor for me. I think I would be the first non-Balkan foreigner to play for Serbian national team. So I think that is going to be some historical thing to do. Also, to be so competitive in the worst scenario for me would be a dream come true, national team wise. I've reached that club wise. I think for me to reach that national team wise for me would be like a huge accomplishment. So yeah, 100%.
What does the time frame for that look like? Because I obviously want to treat this subject with respect. Some people don't like it, some people do like it, but it's ultimately your choice. So when realistically, obviously, the coach's decision permitting, when is the soonest maybe we could expect to see you maybe involved with the Serbian national team?
There are two sides for this answer. First one is the legal side. Legally, from water aquatics perspective, I can only play in a 1 year frame. I have to wait 7 or 8 more months, so I'll be legally able to play. Since they changed the rules, you have to wait 3 years and live for 3 years in the country, playing for some team in this country. So I still have a few more months to go through. And the other factor is the most important is the acceptance of the Serbian people for a foreigner to be playing.
Mm-hmm.
So since they are very patriotic and they are very strong believers of they have to play with their own players, it has to be something very unanimous where everybody agrees that they shall play. So first of all, they have to be in need of a goalkeeper, which I know for a fact in the next year for sure is not going to be the case, since they have a very good goalkeeper, is Branislav Mitrovic. He's great, amazing goalkeeper. So they're safe hands so far. And from this need, they have to come to an agreement between the federation, the coaches, and the players that they would need me. So I can't really put in a time frame. I hope it's soon. I don't really want to wait 10 years for that to happen, but it's very hard to tell. Very hard to tell.
It's interesting, but from a legal point of view, in terms of the rules, the framework that World Aquatics have got, maybe
from March I could play from March.
Okay. So it's really interesting from there, and obviously, we, having heard your story, we all want you to be playing it. It doesn't seem right not to have you at a World Championships or a Europe. Obviously you're not European necessarily.
I feel weird though. I feel weird. Yeah, I feel weird.
Good
to be out of this huge party. Yeah.
Good. Well.
Hoping for better days to come.
Good. I can't wait. And let's see what happens in the future. Okay, we've got a few more, but I'm conscious I don't want to run out of time. I feel like I have to ask this question from Evangelos, who asks, what are your tips for improving reaction and explosiveness as a goalkeeper? And he's kind of put in like brackets, some drills maybe on outside the pool, for example.
Yeah.
Are there things you do like drills that maybe you can share with us now that help?
I was working a lot with tennis balls outside of the pool, so I would do a lot of hand-eye coordination with the tennis balls. That was something Waterpolo told me Josipovic was doing a lot in the gym. So I was using a lot of tennis ball reactions with the hands, reflexes. So you have to get somebody to help you sometimes to throw some tennis balls very fast to catch them. So it's about creativity, but working with tennis balls was something that I was doing a lot to improve my reaction and reflexes. And in terms of explosiveness, this is more complicated. So you have to mix what you do in the gym, work a lot of explosion movements, and then translate it to water. You can use elastics, you can use heavy balls, you can use contrast weights. So it's more about your gym coach, but it's all about in the head to stimulate this explosivity in you. That's the most important. And for sure, tennis balls help.
Maybe you might send us some videos that we can post. with you
for
working
sure.
with some tennis balls, and
It'd be nice.
Good. I heard it was a promise, so now you have to do it. Last question: we ask all of our guests this. Outside of water polo, what are some of your hobbies and interests?
So now I'm studying architecture in the University of Belgrade. I've been a few years already studying, but it's kind of hard to finish since I'm moving around and it's a very tough subject to study. But this is one of my hobbies and passions, architecture. So keeping my mind busy sometimes with that is good. I love music, so eventually I DJ a little bit, but as a hobby. So that's something that not many people know, but the guys who are closer to me, they know that. Not much more. I like to read basic stuff like that, but I think the coolest is the DJ stuff and the architecture. So I would say that.
Wow, we didn't know you were a DJ. That's that's certainly interesting. I assume you're the one on the team bus then with the speaker.
Yeah.
With
that's
playing
so
the music.
Cool, yeah.
Good.
Yeah, that's nice,
Good. Well, we hope to hear some of your sets soon, some of your music. Joao, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much. It's a fascinating talk. We wish you all the best for the future.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for the invite. It was a huge pleasure, and keep up with the amazing work you're doing to help Waterpolo community. I think that's something very, very important since our sport is so small and there are so many people who are not putting in things easy. So no bullshit here.